Welcome back to the realm of history. We're going to take a look at Chapter 28, Section 3, which is about United States economic imperialism. And a lot of what we're going to focus on is United States intervention in Latin America and then the Spanish-American War with President Roosevelt, the Monroe Doctrine, the Rough Riders, things of that nature. So let's go ahead and begin with Latin America after independence. And what we'll take a look at first is the colonial legacy. You know, the political gains and freedoms actually meant very little to desperately poor Latin American peoples. They had a system called the peonage system. It kept peasants in debt while landowners grew very wealthy. The idea of this is that the landowners would pay workers with vouchers, and those vouchers could only be used at the landowner's supply store. So the landowner was paying the peasants very minimum wage, but then also making them use the wages they paid them back in their own stores. Sounds a lot like feudalism to me, but that's a very similar situation there. Political instability then became a major issue with the caudillos. The caudillos were military dictators that would gain and hold power backed by the military. By the mid-1800s, the caudillos ruled most of the Latin American region. The wealthy landowners actually supported the caudillos, and poor people still have very few rights. We're going to talk about economies growing under foreign influence, especially in Latin America, old products and new markets. Economies depended on exporting one or two products, especially in Latin America. The development of trains and refrigeration increased the demand for Latin American foods, especially beef from cattle. And Latin Americans imported manufactured goods as industrialization began to lag behind there. Outside investment and interference did start. The countries built very few schools, roads, and hospitals, but the ones that were built did help. The governments borrowed money from other countries to do some of this. When they couldn't pay their loans back, those other countries moved in to take over land in exchange, and this led to a series of foreign controls in Latin American countries. Now let's take a look at the Latin American empire that the United States gets involved in with the Monroe Doctrine. Newly independent countries in the Americas were not very stable. The Monroe Doctrine is basically when the United States issued an order in 1823 that European entities or countries could no longer colonize parts of the Americas. Cuba, around the same time, declared independence. They were led by a man named Jose Marti. He was a Cuban writer that launched a war for Cuban independence from Spain. Eventually, the United States got in to help Cuba, and this became known as the Spanish-American War. The United States began to help Cuba in 1898 versus Spain. By 1901, Cuba was independent, but the United States still had significant control due to the fact that they helped them out very much. After the war, Spain gave Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines up to the United States. I do have a little visual here for you. This shows you a blockade that the United States Navy put on the Spanish land of Cuba right here. So it didn't allow them to have any exports or imports, a major hit on the economy there. And then here you can see this Spanish-American War spilling all the way into the Philippines, where the U.S. forces came from Hong Kong and then made landings and had battles against the Spanish army there. So you can see just a couple of moves that the U.S. made in that war versus Spain. Eventually the U.S. win and take over Cuba, Puerto Rico, and then the Philippines. Okay, let's take a look at connecting the ocean. The United States wanted a faster route to get from east to west, and they wanted to do this by ship. President Theodore or Teddy Roosevelt backed an idea of building a canal across Panama, the very thin portion of Panama. Colombia at the time controlled Panama and rejected a $10 million bid for them to make this canal. In 1903, the United States helped Panama gain independence from Colombia, and Panama gave the strip of land that would now become the Panama Canal to the United States in exchange. The Panama Canal is a man-made waterway connecting the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. It was built by the United States. So this is what the Panama Canal looks like today. There's a couple of interesting slides here and pictures, though. This is kind of how it works. Now you can see that they raise it and they've got these little portions here called locks that, of course, control the height of the water and allow ships to pass through. And then this is a map of where the Panama Canal is built. So you've got the Atlantic side right here is on the bigger picture, the Atlantic side right here, and then you've got the Pacific side right here. So you're looking at this very narrow strip of land in between South America and Central America there. Okay, to close off today's lesson, we'll talk about the Roosevelt Corollary. The United States bolstered its influence in Latin America through many avenues: military, diplomacy, trade. But the U.S. businesses made major investments in Cuba and other Latin American countries. The Roosevelt Corollary was a proposal that the United States would be able to police power in the Americas. A lot of times people refer in other countries to the United States as the police of the world, and that they think that maybe we intervene too much. But that was something that the United States was doing in Latin America, and they used this idea, this Roosevelt Corollary, to justify repeated military interventions. And so that's one other thing that's kind of controversial with the United States today. Thank you.